All right. So in the today's session, we are going to learn some important and very useful features from Postman. Okay, let's start. So first thing, let us see how we can workflow. So let's say we have something called scripts, right? So there are two kinds of scripts we have. So in the last class, we have seen how we can write test scripts, right? So under test tab, so we can write all the validations, and that is a one part. And there is one more place where we can write all the scripts, that is called as a pre-request scripts. Okay, pre-request scripts. So these are the two places where we can write our scripts, but we don't write the same kind of a scripts in both the places. And if I just go to the Postman and open any request, and here you can just look at this. In the last class, we have seen we have created all the tests under the test tab, right? All the validations we have kept inside the test tab. So beside this, there is one more option called pre-request script. Okay, pre-request script. Now here also we can write our scripts. So what kind of scripts we have to write here, and when that script will be executed. So normally when you put anything in the test tab, when this script will be executed here, once your request is successful, right? Once your request is done, and then once you get a response, and after that, the test will be executed, right? Once you get a response, once the request and response both are completed, then the test tab will be executed. So whatever scripts we have kept inside the test tab will be executed, right? But when these scripts will execute, when you put some scripts inside the pre-request script, so when these will execute, so these scripts will be executed before starting the request, before and after. So the execution will be like this. So for example, I'll say I'm sending some request. After sending the request, we will get some response also, right? And before sending the request, the pre-request script will be executed. So this part will be executed. So pre-request script will be executed before sending the request. Pre-request script. Okay, and then request will be sent, then we'll get the response, and after that, test script will be executed. So this is a sequence. First, a pre-request script will execute, and then request will start, and then we'll get the response. After that, we'll execute test. So based on this, the pre-request script will execute before sending the request, and the test scripts will execute after getting the response. Okay, this is the sequence. Okay, so now the pre-request script and tests, these two are available in three different levels. One is collection level, the other one is folder level. Inside the collection, we can also create multiple folders. So folder level, it is available, and then request level also, which is available. So three levels it is available. So pre-request script, we can write collection level, folder level, request level. And similarly, test script also we can write at the collection level, folder level, request level. But when you specify these things in three different levels, how the execution order will be. So that we will see practically. So first of all, let me show you these options at three levels. Collection, inside the collection, we can have a folder. Inside the folder, we can have a request, right? These are the three levels. Now, let me create a new collection and let me show you. Okay, so let's take this one, request and response. We have created these requests in the previous session. So let me just have one more copy of this. Select and duplicate, and this will create another copy for us. Okay, now duplicate copy is created. So here I'm just renaming it. I'll name it as workflow. Okay, so request HTTP workflow. So this is the collection name which I have given, and inside the collection I will also create one more folder. So how to create a folder inside the collection? You can just click on the three dots and you can see add folder, and now here I can just give any folder name, right? So I'm just giving my folder. Okay, I'm just giving some folder name. Now inside the folder, we can have all the collections. So now let me move these collections into this particular folder. Just drag and drop, and all the collections will be moved into the folder. So now we have a three levels of hierarchy. Collection, inside the collection, we have a folder. Inside the folder, we have a different type of requests. Okay. Now let me just take one request. I don't need all other requests. Let me just delete this. Okay, deleted, and put request is also I'm going to delete, and delete request also I'm going to delete. Okay. So now I have a collection. Inside the collection, we have a one folder. Inside the folder, we have a request, which is basically get request. So when you send this request, we will get some response. Okay. So this is how we have created. So now if I just look at the request, and here you can see test and pre-request. So in the pre-request script, whatever script we have created here, that will be executed before sending the request. And under test, whatever script we created, that will be executed after getting the response. And these two are in the request level. Now go to the folder level. Let me just select the folder. Now, when you select the folder also, you can see these two options, pre-request script and test. You can see both. So when these two will be executed, I will show you the workflow. And go to the collection level now. In the collection level also, we can see pre-request and test, both you can see, right? So when these things will be executed, in which sequence they will execute it. Suppose I have written pre-request script and test script in 3 levels, collection level, folder level, and request level. So then in which sequence they will execute. So when you directly put in the request level, so in the pre-request and the test, these two will be executed after getting before sending the request, after getting the response. But when you create the same thing at the folder level and collection level, then when they will execute. Okay, and what we have to keep in the pre-request, that we will see in the later. So in the next example, I'll show you. But first we need to understand the execution sequence or sequence of execution or order of execution. So let me share a small picture now. So now let's look at this. And this is a way we need to. So request and so here this is a pre-request script. So this will execute before sending the request. And after getting the response, a test script will be executed. So the test tab will be executed. And now we can define these two in 3 different levels: collection level, folder level, and request level. Now, how they will execute? So let us say I have defined something in collection level, folder level, request level. So all pre-request script I have added in 3 levels. Similarly, I also had a test script on 3 levels: collection level, folder level, request level, and in which order they will execute. So in which order they will execute. So let me show you here. Okay. So here, when you specify a test script and a pre-request script in 3 levels, right? So when this will execute, first it will start from here. Okay, here this will execute. At the collection level, pre-request script will execute. And then folder level pre-request will execute. And then request level pre-request will execute. After that, request will complete, will get the response. After that, collection level test script will execute, folder level test script will execute, and request level test script will execute. So this is a sequence: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is a sequence it will execute. So before sending request and response, these 3 will execute one after another. And after getting the response, these 3 will execute one after another. First priority will go to collection. Second priority will go to folder. Third priority will go to request. Okay, suppose if I have not specified these 2, okay, suppose collection and folder I have not specified. So then what happens? Only pre-request script will execute at the request level, and a test script will execute at the request level. Okay, this is the order of execution. Now let me show you practically how we can do this. Later we will use this multiple places. Let's first listen this, how we can execute this order. So now let me just go and create some script. Okay, so let's say folder, I'm just going to collection level. In the collection level, I'm just writing some pre-request script here. Go to pre-request script, and here I'm just putting something. So in Postman also we have something called console window. Okay, so if you have some console window, or in Postman we have some kind of console window. So where in the console window also we can see the results when you execute your collection, or when you execute your folder, when you execute your request, whatever you have executions you have done, the execution results we can see on the Postman console. So if I just look at here, in the bottom of this window, you can see this console. When you click on the console here, you will get a small empty screen here. And this is called Postman console. Okay, I'll show you what is the use of this Postman console. We can see a lot of things in the Postman console. And let me just clear this for now. Nothing is there in the console window. I'm just closing it for now. I'll show you that later. Okay, now go back to the collection, and in the collection level, I'm writing something. Let's say I'm writing some JavaScript statement. I'll say console.log. What is console.log? So console.log is a print statement in JavaScript. So whatever we put inside this double quotations, that will be printed as part of result or as part of output or outcome. So that we can see in the console window. Okay, in Java, we have written something called system.out.println, right? And where we can see that output in the console window in Eclipse. Similarly, here also, we can use console.log message, and this message will be displayed in the console window. Okay, just for your understanding, these two, I'm just using this statement, console.log. And here we are creating this statement at collection level, right? So I'm writing this. This is what pre-request script. Pre-request script at what level? Okay, at what level? Collection level. Okay, I'm writing simple message here. Okay, so pre-request script at collection level. At collection level, I'm written this statement and semicolon. Save this. Now I'll write the pre-request script at folder level. Now go to folder level and go to pre-request script. And here I'm writing the same thing. So pre-request script at a folder level. Okay, I'm writing folder level. Now save this. And now go to the request level. Now go to request and pre-request script. And here I'm writing same thing, pre-request script at request level. Okay, at request level. And then save it. So now 3 levels we have completed. So we have added pre-request script at collection level, folder level, and then request level. Now let us add test script at collection level, folder level, and request level. Now go back and again go back to the collection level. And in the test tab, I'm just going to add a message. So console.log, and this is a test script, right? I can say test script at collection level. Save this and go to the folder and go to the folder level. And here also we have a test here, and I'm adding this test script at folder level. Save it. And as soon as you added, you have to save it, otherwise it won't save. Now go to the request level. Now go to the test level, and here I just added the same thing, test script at request level. Okay, request level. So now save it. So everything is done, right? So we have created 3 different levels: collection, folder, and request. And the pre-request script we have added at the collection level, folder level, request level. And also we have added test script at collection level, folder level, and request level. Okay. So now let us try to execute the collection. Now we'll see how it is going to execute. Now go back to the Postman. And now I'm executing the collection. So click on the collection and then run the collection. Okay, so now here you can just click on this. Just wait for a moment. I'll tell you where exactly we use, what is the use of this. First, we will see how we can use it, how we can work with that. Okay. Yeah, so now it is executed, right? So now go to console window and see the result of them, in which order they have executed. So you can just look at this. This is the actual request which is sent. Okay, so we can just look at this, the hierarchy in the console window, which is very clear. Actually, everything will be shown in the console window. See, this is a request, get request we have sent. Okay, and these 3 things are pre-request script, and these 3 are the test script. So if I just execute, if I just look at here, before executing this request, first collection level is executed, then folder level executed, and then request level executed. And after sending the request and getting the response, then collection level test script is executed. Test script at folder level is executed, and the test script at request level also, which is executed. So this is the execution order. Okay, this is the execution order. So now we need to understand what is the use of pre-request script and the test script. So not only these things, guys, so we can see a lot of other information in the console window. If we just expand this request, it will show you all the details, like what is the response request we have sent, okay, and response headers what we got, and what is the response body we got. Everything it will show you in this console window whenever you send some request. So we can also see the results in the console window when I run some request or collection, whatever it is. So you can just clear it and then closing it. Okay, so now let us understand what is the use of the pre-request script and test script, and why we can specify them in multiple levels. See, the pre-request script will be executed before sending the request, right? Sometimes there will be some prerequisites before sending the request. Sometimes we have some prerequisite. So for example, in the request, I want to specify some body. Suppose, let us say I'm sending some post request. When I'm sending some post request, I have to pass some body. Okay, request body. In that when you pass this body and the data, I want to generate the data dynamically. Okay, I want to generate the data dynamically. So for example, let's say I just want to send some post request. When I'm sending the post request, I want to generate some name of the person, email, and phone number, like this. So normally what you will do, we will hard code this data in the request, post request. In the body, we will hard code the data. But instead of hard coding this data, I just want to prepare this data dynamically. Okay, so because every time when you send the post request, we have to add a new data here. But it is a very difficult thing if you want to add this data every time manually. So I can generate this data randomly. And once the data is generated, the same data I will send along with the post request. And that type of script we can include in the pre-request script, because that should be executed first before sending the request. Okay, so that's the thing. The second thing is sometimes when you sending your request and the request is required some parameters like URL, okay, or the IP address, there are some parameters are required. And those parameters we can access through pre-request script. So we have different levels of variables also. In the next example, I'll tell you what is variable. And when you create some variables, and these variables data, if you want to access in your request, and that also we can do in the pre-request script. In the coming examples, you will understand exactly how we can use, where we can use pre-request script. I will show you so many number of examples. Okay, just for now, understand pre-request script will be executed before sending the request. Test will execute after sending the request. Okay, and sometimes you may run folder, not the individual request. Sometimes you may execute your folder. In those cases, pre-request script and test script also we can define at the folder level. And sometimes you may execute the entire collection. And then if you want to specify pre-request script and test script, you can also specify at the collection level. Okay, at the collection level. And here the thing is, when you specify this pre-request script at the collection level, and that will be used in folder and as well as in the request. And when you specify the test script in the collection level, that is used in the my folder and in the request also, So in multiple places which we can use. So this is a hierarchy actually. That depends on your requirement. You can specify either collection level or folder level or request level. Suppose this pre-request script I want to execute, and that should applicable for all the requests in the folder. In that case, what you will do, that you can specify in the folder level. Or suppose I want to specify some pre-request script that should be applicable for all the folders and all the requests in my collection. In that case, you can specify that at the collection level. So that depends on your requirement. We can specify the pre-request script and test script based on the requirement. You can specify in whichever level you want. But all three levels are supported in Postman, either collection level, folder level, or request level. Okay. So this is a simple way of understanding the workflow, like what is pre-request script, what is a test script, and how we can define them in 3 different levels and in which order they will execute. Okay, in which order they will execute. So this is a concept. Now let us go and see one more thing here. Okay, so we have defined the pre-request script at the collection level, folder level, request level, and first these 3 will execute. And after sending request and getting the response, and then these 3 things will execute. First collection, then folder, and the request. Okay, this is just a workflow. Just remember that in the coming sessions, we will try to use it. Now, the next one is variables, which is another important concept in Postman, variables. So the Postman supported different type of variables. Postman support a different type of variables, and which is very, very important concept. Listen this carefully. So what is variable? Okay, variables concept. What is variable? Okay, and why we need this variable and where we have to use this variable. What is variable? Why we need these variables? Where we have to use these variables. Okay, so the variable means what? Normal in programming languages also we create some variable which can have some value, right? Variable means what? Which will store some data. A variable is nothing but which can store some data. And why we need these variables in Postman? So sometimes we have some repetition, right? So you have some data which is required for every type of request. Okay, so for example, I have different, let me just say I've just created one collection. Okay, I'm doing one collection. I want to test some APIs. Okay, let's say I have student API I want to test. In the student API, we have a multiple type of request, right? So get request, post request, put request, and then delete request. So for every request, we have written a different type of URL, right? So in this URL, we have seen something common. What is the common thing which we have in URL? In all the URLs, we have seen some local host, colon, some port number, and slash, and this is actually URL, and rest of the part is called endpoint. So that will get the resource. So this is a common thing, right? This is a common thing which we have in the URL in every type of request. So if you provide this URL in every request, it will work, no problem. Okay, but if we have changed something, suppose tomorrow I have changed some port number or host name, then what we should do? We should go and modify every request. Every request URL we have to go and modify. So instead of that, we will create one variable, let's say URL equal to something. I'll create some URL variable, and this particular variable I can use in every request. This particular variable I can use in every request. And tomorrow, if there is any change, you can just do change in one place, and we no need to change in every request. And that is a usage of variable. So why we need this variable? If there is any common data which is required, or which is there any repetition or duplication is there? So in those cases, we will just create one variable and we will refer that variable in every request. And not only this URL, sometimes we can refer the variables inside the body also. When you're sending your post request, we will send some body also, right? Request body. In that body also, we can use the variables in multiple levels. Again, these variables also we can create in the different level, collection level, request level, different ways we can create. But first, let us try to understand what is variable. Variable means what? Which contains some data. And why we need a variable? Why we need a variable? So to avoid the duplication, to avoid the redundancy, and to avoid the rework. Because tomorrow, if there is any change in this URL, we have to modify each and every request. Not only URL, there are so many other things which are commonly there for every request. And those things also, we can create a variable. And where we have to create a variable, so the variables we can create in the multiple levels. Variables also we can create in multiple levels. And first we will see how to create a variables and how to access those variables. So the variables we can create in multiple levels. We have different type of variables. Global variables. We can define the variable at the global, which is basically scope. Scope is nothing but what? where and all, where exactly we can create the variable. So global variables we can create, and the collection level we can create a variables. Collection level we can create a variables, and we can also create variables at environment level. Environment variables we can create. Environment variables we can create, and then we have a local variables we can create, and also we can create data variable. So data variable. So there are totally 5 types of variables or 5 levels we can create: global, collection, environment, local, and data. So listen this carefully. Most important concept: variables, global variables, collection variables, environment variables, local variables, and data variables. Totally we have 5 different type of variables. And these variables, why we call as a global, collection, environment, local, data, based on the scope of access. Based on the accessibility, we have divided into 5 categories: global variables, collection variables, environment variables, local variables, and data variables. So these are the 5 different levels of variables we can create. So now let me show you one by one how to create these variables, and then how we can access those variables in our request. Okay. So first, let us see how to create a global variable. How to create a global variable. So what I can do is, let me take one more collection. I'll take another copy of collection. Take a duplicate. Yeah. So I'll just try to rename it. Okay, I'll name it as variables. Okay, so I'll say variables. And now I have 4 different type of requests. Here we do not have a folder level. Okay, so we have a 4 type of request, and one is get request, and then post request, and then we have a put request, and then we have a delete request. So 4 type of requests we have in this collection. Okay, so now let us try to understand about a global variable. So what is global variable? Where exactly we can define and where we can access the global variable. So the global variable, if you want to create, what we can do is we have to go here. So global variables, we can access everywhere. Okay, so global variables we can access throughout the workspace. So normally, what is the structure here? We have a workspace first, right? In the workspace, what we have? In the workspace, we have a collections. In the collections, what we have? We have a request or folders or request, whatever. So we have, this is the hierarchy. So when you create a global variables, we can access within the workspace. That means what? In all the collections, in all the requests, we can access those variables. So when you create a global variables, accessible everywhere, accessible in workspace everywhere, means global access. So within the workspace everywhere we can access those variables. Means when you create a global variable, we can access in the collection, we can access in the request, we can access in the folder, everywhere we can access. That is called global variable. So how we can create that variable? So first of all, here you can see something called a view option. Here in the corner you can see, and when you click on this option, you can see 2 sections here. One is environment, the other one is globals. So here in environment section, we will create environment variables. In the global section, we will create a global variables. So there are 2 kinds of variable I told you here, right? So global and also environment variables also there. So global variables and environment variables. So here there are 2 sections, environment and global. So let's create some variable at the global level. So here we need to just click on the add button, and then it will show you here variable type, initial value, current value. So here we need to give some variable. Let's say I'm giving some variable name, let's say URL, and on which level I'm creating, it is a global variable I'm creating. Let me just call it as a URL underscore global. Okay, so this is a variable name I'm giving. Let me note down the variable URL underscore global. And what is the value I will give here? So if I just look at in every request, this part is common, right? This part is common in every request URL. So I'll just create the variable with this value. So I'm just giving this is initial value, current value is also same. So I have created some variable here, URL underscore global, and the value of the variable is this one. This is the URL actually we have to send. And once you created this variable, and then save it. Okay, now it is got saved. Now I have created a global variable. I have created the global variable. So where I can use that global variable? That global variable is accessible everywhere within the workspace. So now, instead of writing this entire URL in every request, I'll just try to replace this with the variable. So how to replace this? Now let me just remove this part. And here to refer that variable, we have to use one syntax. Double curly braces like this, we have to use double curly braces. And in between, you have to specify the variable name. Here we have to specify the variable name. So this is how we can refer that variable. Okay, this is how we can get the value from the variable. So we already defined in the global variable. Now we are trying to access the value of that variable in our request. So simply you can say URL underscore global. That's my variable name. URL underscore global. That's it. Okay, so if you write something wrong, it will show you like this. And if everything correctly written, and then it will show you like this. Okay, now it is added. See, now this is added. Now when you try to send this request, now observe my request is got successful. Okay, my request is got successful. So from where this is taking that URL? From the variable. We are referring the global variable here. We are referring the global variable. Now the same thing we can replace in every request. Let's go to every request and let us replace that global variable. And tomorrow, if there is any change in this URL, we have to just change the value of the variable. That's it. So now I'm saving everywhere. And also I'm replacing this with the variable. And not only URL, we will also create different type of variables. Okay, now I'm saving this. Okay, so now in every request, I have replaced the URL, right? So now let me just execute the entire collection and see how it is going to execute. So I will also see the output in the console window. Let's go to console and clear the console so that we can see the results in the console window also. Now let me just run the entire collection. Run the collection. And I'm selecting all the requests. Click on run collection. Yeah, so now we can see all 4 requests are successfully executed. Now these are the results. When you send the get request, now you can see the URL. The URL, exactly this value is captured from the global variable. And same post request we sent. And then put request. And then we send delete request. Okay, now from where this URL is getting here is through variable, global variable which we created. So again, if you just go here, click on this, you can see the variable name and value. If there is any change, suppose you have created 100 type of request in different collections. So it is very difficult to modify in every place, right? So in those cases, global variables will be preferred. So when you create a global variable, if you do change in one place, that will automatically reflected in all type of collections, all type of requests, wherever you have used this variable or wherever you have used this URL. Okay, so this is a global variable. This is how we can use global variable. And that can be accessible everywhere within the collection and within the request. Everywhere you can access that variable. Now the next one is what? Environment variable. Okay, so before discussing environment variable, let us discuss the collection variable. Collection variable. And when you create a collection variable, these variables are accessible within the collection. Within collection. Within collection means what is there within the collection? Within the collection, what is there? Request, different type of request, right? So that means what? When you create a variables at the collection level, those variables we can access within the collection, means multiple requests which are created within one collection. There we can use it. So global is very high level. So these variables we can use across multiple collections. But collection variables we can access only within the collection among multiple requests. That's called collection variables. Now let's create a variable at the collection level. Okay. Now go back here. And this is my collection. So we already created one global variable. Now we are going to create a variable at the collection level. So to create a collection level variable, what you can do is we just select the collection and here click on the 3 dots. There is an option called edit. Edit. Okay. Click on the edit. And now here you can see variables part. So authorization, pre-request, test, and variables. So the last section is variables. You can just close this unnecessary windows. Just go to the variable section. In the variable section here, we can create a variable at the collection level. Okay. Now let me create a variable here. I'm just creating URL underscore. This is a collection level. So I'll name it as a collector. Okay. And now again, same value, request and response. So same URL I'm going to send. So what is that URL? This is the URL. Okay. So now URL underscore collector, same URL, same thing again. Now click on the save button. So once you provided this variable or once you created this variable, you have to click on the save. Otherwise it will not be saved. So what is the name of the variable? URL underscore collector. Now save this. So now this is the variable which is created. URL underscore collector. This is the collection level variable. Okay. Now, so we created this variable. So how to use this variable? How to access the variable? Suppose go to the get request and same syntax, no change. Okay. It's the same syntax. If you want to access the local variable and if you put the cursor here, this will also clearly give you what is the value and what is the scope of the variable. So currently this is a global variable. Now I want to access collection variable. Okay. I want to define collection variable. So simply what you can do, just change the value. So same curly braces, two curly braces before and after. And in between, you can simply say URL underscore collector. URL underscore collector. That's it. Syntax will not be changed. Syntax is same. To refer the variables, we have to use this syntax. Referring variables, we have to use double curly braces, and here we have to specify the variable name, and make sure there should not be any spaces. This is how we can just refer the variable. Okay. Now go back. So here instead of global variable, this time I'm referring collection variable, right? So now let me just save and then execute. And now this time we got the URL from the collection variable. So the variables we can also create at the collection level, and those variables we can access only within the collection. Among these four requests we can access. This is the collection variable, collection type of variable, second type. Now the environment variable. So what is environment variable? So this is something different, guys. So what is environment variable? So where exactly environment variable is required? So let me just give you some example, right? So you have created multiple requests, right? So let's say you have request 1, you have request 2, you have request 3, you have created multiple requests in your collection. Okay. So if you want to execute all the collection, all the requests from the collection, let's say this is my collection and I want to execute all the requests in specific environment. Let us say I'll create some environment. Let's say QA, dev, and prod. Let's say I'll create some different type of environment. And every environment is having different variables. So this QA environment, different URL and different values will be there. In the dev environment, different URL, different values. And in the production environment, and different environments are having different type of variables. Maybe same variables, the values can be different. Now I want to execute this collection, or I want to execute these requests in the QA environment. When I execute these in the QA environment, then I can use these variables. If I want to use these variables, I have to switch to the QA environment. Or if I want to use these variables in my request, I should go to dev environment. I should switch to dev environment. Or if I want to use these variables and URLs in my request, then I have to switch to the production environment. So these are our environment level variables. So we can create variables at the environment level, and whichever environment we have to use, or on whichever environment we want to execute this request, we can switch to that environment and then we can use those variables in our request. Okay. So in every environment, the variables are there. But what are the variables we want to refer in our request? We have to switch to that particular environment, and then we can able to access those variables. Okay. And Q environment, dev environment, product, in every environment, we can create a variables. And based on the environment, we can execute our request. So let me show you the practically. So environment variables also a kind of a global variables, and these variables we can access through different environments. Let me show you. So here, go to the Postman, close this. Right. So now let me create an environment first. Okay. So where you can create environment, again, go to the same place here, environment, click on this. And you can see here, we already created one global variable, but there are no environments as of now. Okay, no active environment. So here, what is that environment? An environment is a set of variables that allow you to switch the context of your request. Okay, so now we need to first create an environment. So currently, if I just look at here, there is no environment here. So first we need to create an environment, and then we can create an environment variables. And without environment, we cannot create an environment variable. So now we need to create a new environment. So if I just go here, there is no environment as of now. So all our requests we are directly running, not associated with any environment. So because here it is a no environment. So now we need to create a new environment. In that environment, we can create a variables. Now let me create a new environment. How to create? Just go here, select this new environment. And then we can pass some value here. Let me just say QA. And now I created a new environment called QA. So how to switch to that? We have to save that actually. 1 second. Okay, click on the new environment and provide some name here. One second, it's not saving it. Give me a second. I think there is one environment which is already created. Okay, just a moment. A new environment. Rename, share, delete. 1 second. Let me just delete this. Okay, so currently I don't have any environment. So these are the collections which we created. And if you want to create a new environment, so we need to use one option here. No environment. So currently we do not have any environments. So we need to create our own environment. No environment. Click on environment, quick look. Yeah, so I think you can create here. Let me just check it once again. So click on add. And here, yeah, so here we can specify it. Okay, so if you want to create a new environment, so what we can do is first we need to go to this environment section. So here we need to click on the view, right? Environment. Currently, there are no environments. Okay, there are no environments, and there is one environment, no environment, and new environment. Both options are showing. So forget about this. So just click on this one, environment, quick look. And here there are no variables are defined, no environment is defined. So what we can do now here, we have to click on this add button. And now here it is asking for the environment, and here we have to define the variable. Now let me just give an environment is QA. And now here I will define the variable. Let's say URL underscore. This is environment variable. So I'll say QA underscore environment variables, env. Okay, so this is a name I have given. And again, provide the value for that. So this is the environment variable I'm creating. So what is the value of this URL? I'm just saving the same value. Go back and provide the initial value, current value, both are same. So you can just provide this and then save it. And where exactly we are saving this variable? Under QA environment. Now save this. Okay, so now it is saved. And after that, close this. Right. So now we want to use an environment variable. Now I want to use that environment variable from the QA. So initial value is optional. If you just provide the current value, automatically the same value will be copied into initial value. So both will be the same. Okay. So now if you want to use that environment variable, so how we can use it? So if you want to use collection variables or global variables, so we directly specified that, right? So we can just go to our request variables and we directly specify these brackets and we're able to access all the environment variables. But access the global variables and the collection variables. Now, how we can access environment variables? Now observe this. So let me just go to get request. And here I'll try to replace with the environment variable. Now observe URL underscore QA underscore environment. So this is a variable we created, right? Same variable or not? URL underscore QA underscore env. So this is the variable which we have created, environment variable. Now the save it. Okay, now I have saved. And it is giving an error actually. It's not able to access this variable here. When you send the request will got failed here. It's not sending. So why it is got failed? Because we are not able to access the environment variable. So why we are not accessing this environment variable? Because we are not shifted to any environment as of now. You can see there is no environment it is showing. Currently, we are not using any environment. So if you want to access any environment variable, we have to switch to the particular environment. So how to switch to the particular environment? Simply we can select here. Go to the drop down and we already created one environment QA, right? Select that environment. And now we are able to access here, then send the request. So now we got the output. Okay. So if we want to use any specific environment variables, we have to switch to the particular environment in this list. Okay. So for example, let me create one more environment variable. Okay. Let's go here. And currently we are in the QA environment, and the QA we have created this variable, right? Now let me create one more environment. So how to create another environment? You can just go back here. Okay, not here. You can just go here, new environment, select the new environment and click this. And here we need to create a new environment now. So click on edit. Okay, now I can provide the environment name here. Let's say dev environment. And here also in the dev environment also I'm creating the variable. Let's say URL underscore dev underscore environment. And here I'm just passing the value. So what is the URL value which I'm passing here? Let us assume this is a dev URL. Okay, so here I'm passing the URL. And once you copied this initial value, the same thing is copied into current value. And now save it. So how many environments we created? 2 environments are created. Now close this. Go back to your request. So currently which environment we are pointed here? Dev environment. And let us see no environment. Okay. And there is no environment. Sorry, we have to take this one, right? So yeah. So currently there is no environment, but still we are referring QA environment variable. QA environment variable we are referring. And when you send this request, will it successful? No, because we have not shifted to any environment, no environment. Now I want to use QA. So then what you can do, we have to switch to the QA and then execute the request. Then request will be successful. Now this time it is used QA environment variable. Now if you want to use dev environment variable, so let's change this variable now. So URL underscore dev underscore environment. Now it is giving an error here. Why it is giving an error? We are trying to access dev environment variable, but still we are pointing to QA environment here. Okay. So now what we need to do, we need to switch to the dev environment. Select the dev environment. Now we are able to access this variable. Then click on the send request. We got the request, the response. So this is how we can create environment variables, and we were able to access those variables, environment variables. Even environment variables also we can access across all collections. But what is a prerequisite here is we have to select the environment here in this list. And then only we will be able to access those environment variables. And not only this collection, you can use these variables these environments in other collections also. But only thing is what we need to switch to particular environment, and then we will able to access the variables which are coming from that particular environment. Okay, so these are all environment variables, environment variables. Okay, so accessible in all collections. Okay, all collections. But what is the rule here is we need to switch to particular, right? We need to switch to particular environment. We need to switch to particular environment. Okay, so please remember this, the difference between global and environment variable. So what is the difference between global and environment variables? Global variables means what? We can use everywhere in all the collections, in all the requests. So we no need to point anything there. We no need to switch anywhere. But when I use environment variables also global, we can access in all collections. But when we were able to access only when you switch to particular environment, then we will able to access. So currently these are the two environments we are created and we are able to access in this collection. Tomorrow, if you want to use the same variables in other collection, you can still use it. You can just replace that variable here, but you need to change the environment here. You have to switch to particular environment. Then you're able to use in other collections. But without changing the environment, you cannot use it. But in case of global variables, you don't need to bother about environment. So you can access global variables in every place in all other collections. Okay, that is the basic difference between global and environment variables. So collection variables we already discussed. So collection level, whatever variables we created, we can access them within all our requests. Within the collection only, we will able to access. Okay. So this is all about global variable, collection variable, and then environment variable. So these are the three types of variables. Now we have local variables and data variables. So what is local variable? So local variables, we can create at request level. Okay, local variables we can create at request level. So for example, select any request, get request, I'm selected. So where I can define the variable. So where I can define the variable, that we can define in the pre-request script. We do not have any variable section here. Only in the pre-request script, here we can define the variables. Here we can define the variables, and those variables we can refer here. So to define the variables here, local variables, what we need to do is we have to write some script here. We have to create some script. So we cannot directly write like variable name equal to so and so value, because when this pre-request script will execute before sending the request, pre-request script will execute, right? Before sending the request, right? So now what I can do here is I will create a local variable. So all local variables should be created under pre-request script. So then what happens before sending the request, the local variable will be created and that variable will be used in the request at runtime. Okay. Now let's create a local variable now. So to create a local variable, we have to use again PM library. So PM dot variables, okay, PM dot variables dot set. This is a method. And here we have to specify the variable and corresponding value. So now I'm defining a variable called URL underscore local. This is my variable name. And what is the value of this variable? The value of the variable is what? URL. Let me just copy the URL from here. Okay, so here I'll place the URL. Now this is how we can define the local variable by using script inside the pre-request script. So whatever variables you want to define, whatever local variables you want to define should be part of pre-request script. So why we have to specify inside the pre-request script? Because this one will be executed before sending the request, and then the URL will be ready, the variable will be ready, and then we can use this variable in our request. So now I'm saving this, and now the same variable I will refer in my request. Go to your request and then try to change here. Okay, this is my local variable I'm referring now, URL underscore local. right? So now the save request, and then let us try to send the request. Click on send button. Okay, so it is sent, but somehow it is not giving anything. Okay, let's go to console window and see. Yeah, so there may be some syntax error. You can see here. Let me just clear this. Execute one more time. Okay, so now you can just look at this. We successfully sent a request. You can see here the same request is got replaced here, but there is 2 times it is got placed. Duplicate is there. That's the reason we are not getting proper response. Now let's go and change the value. So here this API is not required. Okay, in the URL. Now save it, and one more time close this console window and then execute. Yeah, so now we got the response. So this time we are using local variable. So where we define the local variable inside the pre-request script. Inside pre-request script, we created our local variable. Okay. So we do not have any other place. Only in this place we can create. This is a local variable, and this variable we can access only within the request, only for this particular request. If you want to use this variable for other request, it is not possible because this is derived inside the pre-request script of this particular request. So we can use this variable only for this particular request. That's the reason we can call it as a local variable. And if you want to create another local variable for other request, we need to go to each and every request, and then we need to create. Suppose if you want to go to post request, again one more local variable you can create here, and that will execute before sending the request, and a variable will be created. Okay, so if you want to create any variables locally, you can create. If you want to use that variable only for that particular request, then you can go with the local variable. Or if you want to use the variable across the entire collection, then go and create a collection level variables. Or if you want to use the variables across the entire workspace, that means all the collections, then go and create a global variables or environment variables. So that is a priority, guys. Okay, so global variables, collection variables, environment variables, and local variables. And the data variables we will create in external files. Okay, we will create a data variables on external files. External files in the sense what? It can be CSV file, or it can be text file, etc. Okay, so we will get the data from the external files. Like we will have all the data variables in Notepad or Excel sheet somewhere, and we will retrieve them and use in our request. Okay, and this will be used in the data-driven testing especially, and I will discuss about these data variables in data-driven testing concept. Okay, for now, just understand these 4 types of variables. So local variables, accessible only within the request. Only within request means it is specific to request. It is very specific to request. So global variables, collection variables, environment variables, and local variables. Global variables, collection variables, environment variables we can create, but local variables we have to write a script. We have to write a pre-request script for local variables. We have to create like this. In the pre-request script, we have to write like this. Okay, so this is how we need to create a local variable. And data variables we will discuss in the next session as part of data-driven testing. Okay, so now guys, you understood how we can create a variables and how we can access the variables on the different levels: global, collection, environment, and local. The data variables I will explain later. Okay. Now let's move on to something else. So far we created global variables here, right? Here we created directly on the UI, and environment variables also we created in the UI. And local variable, collection variable we created here. This is our collection level variable. And local variable we created inside the pre-request script. All right. So local variable we created directly inside the pre-request script. We have written subscript here. That is a local variable. Now we can also create global variables, environment variables, collection variables through pre-request script, just like a local variable. So to create a local variable, we have created some script, right? Similarly, we can also create environment variables, global variables, okay, and variables by using script. So by writing a simple script, we can create from here itself. And that is also possible. Okay, at runtime, those variables will be created. At runtime, it will be created. And at the same time, after execution is completed, we can also unset those variables, or we can also remove those variables. Okay, so different things we can do. So far, we have seen how to create a variables in the different levels. But now what I'm saying is we can also create a variables by writing the script inside the pre-request script. That's what I'm saying. Okay, let me show you. So for example, currently I'm executing this request. And from here, I want to create a global variable. I want to create a global variable from here. From this particular request, I want to create a global variable. So normally where we will create a global variable, we will go here and here we will click on add here. We will just create a variable here, which if you just click on edit, it will allow us to create one more variable. We can create any number of variables here. This is the way. But now I want to create a global variable through the script, pre-request script. So to create a global variable, how we can create? Again, we have a package pm.globals.set. pm.globals.set. And here we had just specify the variable name and value. Variable name and value. So here I'm just defining some variable name. Let's say user ID. Okay, user ID. And what is the user ID here is I'm just passing some value. Let's say 2 or 3. Okay, this is my user ID. So what is this? This is a variable and this is a value. So whenever you say value, we should keep in the double quotations. Now this will create a global variable. So this will create a global variable. So let me just show you how it will go, how it will create a global variable. Now save this. I have saved it. Okay. Now currently, if I just go to this section, how many global variables we have? Only one global variable we have, that is URL underscore global, right? Now here I'm going to create user ID underscore global. I'm giving, this is the name I'm giving, and I have given some value called 2. Now save and let's send this request. And after sending the request, then see what will happen. So I'm sending this request. I'm currently, which variable I'm using here? Local variable only I'm using. Okay. So send this request. Yeah. Now it is successfully executed. Now we will see whether this global variable is created or not. We have still not used it, but we have just created that variable. Now go to this section. Now we can see there is one more variable is created. User ID underscore global. The value is 2 is got created. So how we have created this? Through your script we have created. Just like a local variable, global variables also we can create. Okay, so now we created a one variable, global variable, but can we use this variable in our URL request? Can we use that variable? Yes, happily we can use. How we can use it? Simply replace this 2. Instead of 2, I can put 2 curly braces and here specify the global variable. That's it. Okay, now save it and then execute. You will get the same data. So now this URL is coming from the local variable and this ID is coming from the global variable which we created. Okay, so many ways we can do it. So through the script also we can directly create a global variable, and that is again permanently available. Global variables are permanent. Okay, everything, everywhere you can access, right? You created a global variable from the request, right? It doesn't mean we can access this only in this request. No. If it is a local variable, we can access only for this request. But if it is a global variable, once it is created, then we can access that in another request also. Okay. Similarly, let us also create environment variable. So how to create environment variable? Environment variable. So to create environment variables, again, pm dot environment dot set. Same method. Okay, set. And here I'm going to create an environment variable. So how to create an environment variable here? Simply specify and which environment it is going to create inside the dev environment. Currently, we have a switch to dev environment, right? That's the reason. Let's switch to the QA environment. Now, this environment variable will be created under QA environment. So now let us create the variable pm.environment.set, and here the variable name. I'm giving variable name as user ID underscore env QA underscore env. And what is the value? I'll say 2. So this will create environment variable. Okay, this will create environments. Yeah, global variables we can access everywhere. That means what? Throughout the workspace. But outside of the workspace, you cannot. Workspace is completely different thing. Okay, workspace is nothing but one single project. Okay, so the global variables you can access within your workspace. Everywhere we will able to access. Okay, so now we created environment variable. So currently, do we have any environment variables here? Yeah, so currently we have only one environment variable created under QA. QA is one environment. Under this, we created one variable earlier, right? So now I'm going to create one more variable here. Under which environment? Here I have selected QA environment. So under this QA environment, I will create this variable. Now let us try to execute this request and see how it is going to work. Click on send. Yeah, once it is successfully sent, now go back here and see environment variable is created or not. Yes, user ID underscore QA underscore env is created. Now, if you want to use this environment variable as a parameter here, can we use it or not? Yes, can we use it, right? This is environment variable we can access. So now let me just replace here. I say instead of taking my global variable, this time I'm taking my environment variable. So now save request and then execute. So you got the result. So this time we have created an environment variable, and also we used the same variable as part of our request. Okay. Now let me create another way. In the collection, global variable we have created, environment variable we created, local variable also we created, and what else is left? What else is left? Collection variable, right? Collection variable. So let's create a collection variable now. Collection variables we can access throughout the collection. Collection variable. So now how to create a collection variable? I say pm dot. Here we have to say collection variables dot set. Again, same. So again, we specify the variable name user ID underscore. This is a collection variable. So I say collect. And the value of the variable is what? 2. Okay, now this will create your collection variable. Now, before sending the request, please check how many collection variables we have created earlier. So go to the collection, click on these 3 dots. Sorry, select the collection directly. And now here, see, under variables, earlier we created only one variable, URL underscore collector. So now I'm going to create another collection variable through the. How we can do that now? Let's try to execute this. Click on send. So now it is done. So now if I go back to the collection, now see the variable section. See here, it is created a new variable under collection. Now, if we want to access the variable in our request, how we can access? Again, same. So instead of specifying this environment variable, let's change it as a collection variable. I'll say collect. That's it. Now save it and then execute. So this time the ID is taking from the collection variable, right? So like this, we can create different variables from the pre-request script. We can create a local variables. We can create a global variables. We can create environment variables. We can also create collection variables through pre-request script. And except this local variable, rest of the variables we can use within the collection. All other requests also we can refer. Especially this collection variable we can use in all other collections. But environment variable, global variables we can use in other collections also within the same workspace. Okay, so this is how we can also create variables through pre-request script. Okay, remember this. Now creating variables using pre-request script. Okay, this is the concept. Creating variables using pre-request script. So local variables we created, global variables we created, environment variables also we created, and also collection variables we created. Okay, suppose now I have created variables. Now I want to unset those variables. I want to remove those variables. Okay, how we can do that? So for example, let's go to the request. So currently, which ID we are using here? Collection, right? Collection variable. Okay. So when I use this local variable here, that will be there only the runtime. So once the request is executed and request is completed, the local variable also will automatically removed. Only runtime it will create, because that's a local variable which is specific to this request. But let us see the rest of the variable. So now I have a global variable. When you send this request, the global variable will be created and the same variable will be used here. But after using the variable here, I want to delete my global variable. After using it, then I want to delete that. So I don't want to create here. Here by default, it is created, right? As soon as your request is executed, it is created the global variable here. Here it is created, permanently created, right? As soon as you executed this request, this global variable is created permanently, and that variable is also used as part of your request. But my requirement is what? I want to create a global variable and use it in your request. After using it, then delete the global variable. I don't want to see that global variable in this section. I just want to delete it after completion of your request. Okay, that's my requirement. So in those cases, what you can do is, as soon as you created this global variable, you can write one more script to unset the variable. I can say pm dot not here. If you put here, what will happen? It will create a global variable. Immediately it will delete. Before using it, it will delete. Before using it will delete. But my requirement is what? I want to delete that after getting the response. That's my requirement here. So let me just clarify this again. See, this is my request, and then I will get the response. And I'm creating all the variables before sending the request. It can be global, or it can be local, or it can be environment, whatever. Where I'm creating these before sending the request, because we put everything in the pre-request script. That's the reason. Before sending the request, these variables are created. Now, after using these variables in the request, after getting the response, here I want to delete all those variables. Now, where exactly we have to write the script? So where we have to write the script? Please guess where we have to write the script. In the test script. In the test script. Okay, so not in the pre-request script. We have to write in the test script. Remember, okay? Now in the test script, I will try to remove the variables. So global variable, environment variable, collection variables we created, right? Same thing. Local variables we don't need to remove, because it will create at runtime only for that request. It will not store anywhere else. But a global environment collection variables will store somewhere. So after completion of my request, I can delete them. So now what you need to do, go to the test tab, and here we have to write something. So how we can delete them? So pm dot globals, instead of set, you have to use unset. And when you use unset, you no need to provide the value, just provide the variable name. That's it. Okay, now let me just comment these two, and we will see global variable is creating and deleting or not. We will see. Now save the request. Now what I'll do in this request, in the pre-request script, we created the global variable. So I'm just using that variable here. I'm using the global variable. I'm using global variable. Okay, so now I created a global variable through the script, and I have used it. After that, what should happen? Go to the test tab and remove the global variable. Unset the global variable. After unsetting, then we cannot see that variable in this section now. In the global variable section, we cannot see that variable. That's the purpose. Now, let us try to save and execute this request. Okay, now it is done successfully, and it is created a global variable by using this pre-request script, and it is used here. And after that, it should be removed, right? And we will see whether it is removed or not. Go back here and see here under global variables, we do not have that variable. It is got removed, right? Now, similarly, we do the same thing for other thing. So let's say environment variable. Now go to the pre-request script. I creating this environment variable, and let us try to use this environment variable as part of our request. Let me remove this. And now I'm using environment variable. Save the request. After creation of environment variable and after using here, then go to the test. I just want to remove that environment variable. So environment dot instead of set, we have to use unset. And we no need to pass the value, just pass the key. That is a variable name. And this will automatically delete the environment variable after using it. Now save and then execute. Now it is done. Now if I just go back and see here under environment section, we do not have the user ID variable here. Okay, but this is created. Why? Because we have put all the statements, we have not commented them actually. So that's the reason global variable is created. So here we created environment variable and we have used it. And after that, we deleted environment variable. So if I just look at here, we do not have environment variable under QA section. Okay. Same thing we repeat for collection variable. So currently here, this is this will create a collection variable. Now I'm using this variable as part of your request. Okay. And after creation and after usage, then I'm just going to unset the collection variable. So I can just enable this code. This will unset the collection variable. So when I say unset, this will unset the variable and remove this value. Okay, now the save it. So currently we have that variable in the collection. If I just go click on the collection and under variable section, currently we have this user ID collection variable, right? So now it will automatically remove after execution of this request. Now send this request. Yeah, now it is done. Now we can go back to the collection and variables. Now it got removed. Okay, so this is how we can also create different type of variables on the fly, and we can also remove the values of those variables once the request is completed. So these are the different options which we have on the variables. Okay, very, very important. Very, very important. So we can create our variables and we can use that variables in our request. And after that, we can remove those variables automatically. Instead of using these UI options, we can directly do through the script. We can directly do the script. So this is all for unsetting. Okay. Or we can say unset or remove variables using script. Okay. So creation and deletion both have done. Creation and deletion. Okay. So this is how we can work with the variables. Okay. So here we have created a variables and we have also successfully deleted the variables. And also we have used the variables as part of your request, as part of our request. But now my requirement is what? I want to get the data of the variables inside the test or inside the pre-request script, not in the request. When I want to use the variables as part of the request, just put the variable name in the curly braces, you will get it. But now I want to get them. I want to get the values of the variables inside the pre-request or test script, how it is possible. Okay, let me show you how it is possible. So let's create some variables here. And global variable I'm creating, environment variable I'm creating, collection variable. All three variables I'm creating here. Sorry, go to the pre-request script. And here we're creating all three variables. Local variable, global variable, environment variable, and collection variable. So totally 4 variables we created. And I want to get the values of these variables. Okay, then what you can do, go to the test tab. So before unsetting, this is for unsetting the data, right? Before unsetting, I want to print the data. Okay, before unsetting, before deleting, I want to print the data of those variables. So how we can get PM dot global variable data I want to get, PM dot globals dot get, okay, get PM dot globals dot get of variable name. So what is the variable here is what we variable we created, user ID underscore global, that we have to specify. And this will return the value of user ID underscore global. Basically, it will return the value of global variable. Now, I want to see what is that value. Where I can see that value? In the console window, I can print. Okay, in the console window, let me clear here. I can print. How we can print in the console window? Just by using console.log method. So keep everything in the console.log. So that whatever the value which is returning here, that will be printed in the console window. Same thing, I will try to print the value of environment variable. So what is an environment variable we created? This is the environment variable. Now let me put here. Okay. And then I will keep another statement, console.log pm.globals.get instead of user ID. Now this time I will try to get collection variable. I will try to print the collection variable. Okay, now save. So what I have done here, in the pre-request script, we created all the variables. Okay, so local variable we created, global variable we created, environment variable created, and collection variable also created. Then after executing of the request, then I want to print those first. I want to print them first. PM dot global means what? It will give you global one, and environment variable means PM dot environment. You have to select environment dot get. So PM dot collection variables dot get. Similarly, local variable we can access or not? Local variable. Local variables. PM dot just say variables. Variables dot get of. What is the name of the local variable which we have given? Local variable is URL, right? So not ID, URL we created. So let's use that. Go back and specify that. Okay. So now we successfully created the different variables, local, global, environment, and collection. And then in the test, we have successfully printed the values of those variables. And after that, I'm removing the data from those variables. Right. So now save it and then execute. Go to the console window. And here you will get all the results. So now let me send this. Yeah. So now we can just look at this. So we got all the values. So first of all, the request is got sent. And after that, we got variables, right? So if I just look at this, four values, 2, 2, 2, 1. So first three variable values are what? 2 only. And this local URL value is what? URL which we have given. So after that, the variables are got removed. Okay. So if you want to get the values of variables, which we created, then we have to use these methods. Okay. Capture the values from variables. Capture the values from variables. Actually, console.log will just print the message in the console window. But actual method is what? This is actual method. pm.globals.get, pm.environment.get, pm.collection variables, and pm.variables. So three methods we discussed, guys. One is what? Set method, unset method, and then get method, right? Three methods are there: set, unset, and get. So again, these three methods we used at the global variables, environment variables, collection variables, local variables. Global variables we used, environment variables we used, collection variables we used, and also local variables we used to create variables. And unsetting also we can use all four types of variables, and get also we can use for all types of variables. Right? So set method, will create a variables. Unset method will delete the variables. Get method will get the data from those variables. Okay. So guys, are you clear? So I will share a small document. You guys can understand. So this is Postman variables. And go through this document. I have created all the steps, whatever we have discussed in the today's session, syntaxes and everything. And you can just go through them, and how to use the variables inside the data also I will show you in the next session. We will see that part in the next session. Data variable I will explain in the next session. Okay. Because the data driven testing we can achieve by using data variables. So data variables, we can get it from the external files. So here global variable, environment, collection, local, these variables are stored within Postman itself. But data variables are coming from the external files. It can be CSV or it can be text file, right? We have to store the data in the external files and we will read the data. That's called data variable. So that will be used for data driven testing. Probably in the next session, we will discuss about data variables. So for now, just understand only these 4 types of variables: global, environment, collection, and local. Okay. So this needs a lot of practice, guys. So multiple times you have to practice, spend good amount of time and get familiar with all types of variables and all types of options, because it is very, very important to understand. In the next class is completely depending on this concept. In the next class, we will see API chaining concept. In the chaining concept, what will happen? We will get the response from one API, and the same response we will pass as part of request in the next API. That's called chaining process. Okay. And that concept is required, all the variables concept. So please practice this multiple times. You have to practice and get familiar with all kinds of concepts. Okay. And then we will discuss in the next session. So I'll stop for today's session here, and tomorrow we will continue.